If you were to, take these 5 points, and this is a tough one because it's a loaded question. And if your client said that, listen, we don't have the budgets to work on all five, hypothetical, right? Which one would you choose first? It's a difficult question.
Yeah. I would say that probably biophilia is going to have the most visible and direct effect, but I don't think you have to choose. What we do have to choose, though, and it's not, unfortunately, hypothetical, is the client not having the budget. So how can we incorporate these things in a way that's affordable and that shows a return on investment becomes the real challenge for us.
I'm just thrilled to be here with you all. Your host, Abhay Wadhwa. I would like to welcome another esteemed guest who spent a lot of her time and energy in making the world a better place. She is an acknowledged expert on how do you utilize architecture for well-being. Salutogenesis is a topic that she will talk about today. So please join me in welcoming Angela Mazzi.
I also spent a lot of time studying history and culture. I minored in architectural history and organizational behavior because what makes people tick fascinated me. When I did my graduate work, I focused solely on social and cultural issues and design, which was just a fantastic way to get so much more clarity on how the decisions that we make and the background through which people can process them really does impact the way that they show up in the world. And that we do have a moral obligation. I like to say architecture is advocacy for helping people do well and be well instead of just having to cope. So I've kind of focused on that my whole career. How do we help people be calm in spaces that we design? How do we help them with wayfinding? How do we help them feel empowered? What behavioral cues are we giving? People process space very differently depending not only on their cultural background, but also on how their mind works. So some people, for example, will find it easy to wayfind by remembering pieces of art. Other people, color will help, or some people like to read. They're definitely visual and the numbers help. So we really need to layer a lot of different things into an environment, and it's all part of it, right? You could be in this beautiful restaurant, but if there was bright harsh lighting, it wouldn't have any ambiance. Versus if it has candlelight and sparkly twinkling lights, that sets a whole different scene. In other cultures and other vernaculars, you see how architecture supports a social structure or a community. And in modern times, we've kind of gotten away from all that. And even when I travel to different countries, it's starting to all look the same. There's the same shops, same style of buildings. And we lose something in that because it's not reflecting the human condition of interaction. It's more functional architecture at a scale that is for the automobile, not the person walking. And things like edge conditions are going away as we have things like a mega building and a sea of parking. So I really think it's important that we start to see that these sorts of trends are actually harming our health and well-being. You walk right into this beautiful atrium from which you can see every single destination that you would ever go to is all right there in that one view. And so some of what's provided here is that ease of wayfinding, bringing nature into the building directly through a green wall, having lots of natural light, natural materials, having portals to make it easier to find your way. These walkways that loop around that provide opportunities for pacing, the movable furniture, the vantage points. So it's all designed to really help people feel at ease. I would recommend to anyone that they do a post-occupancy study because there's a lot of unintended consequences that happen in our work.
Right.
Every design is a hypothesis, even if you're not doing formal research. You believe something will be a certain way because of these design decisions. And I would say that's not always true. And sometimes it's happy accidents that make it better than you thought. And other times there's a real opportunity to learn why something might only work in certain conditions that will help you advise the next client in a better way.
Beautiful. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The hypothesis conversation is often lost within the architectural realm, that even though it's not a research project, you still have to have a point of view and therefore an hypothesis on what you were trying to achieve from your design moves. Yeah.
One thing I really want to stress to everyone listening is that using salutogenesis is not limiting your design freedom. It is not prescriptive. There's a lot of different strategies that you can use. And in the paper that I published, which you can see cited on this slide, I talk about for each of these 5 aspects, these strategies, and you can choose among them. So, and they're not strategies like all counters should be at 32 inches high. They're strategies that are much broader than that. So that there's a lot of freedom to choose as someone developing a design, what's going to work best for the project and what you're trying to do, but still be consciously aware of what we're trying to do to promote well-being. I definitely want to do more of this outreach and advocacy work because there's just so much need. And I think the pandemic really highlighted how much stress we are under and just how toxic that stress is, because so often we drag ourselves across the finish line every day. We cope until we can't. And I think the pandemic beautifully illustrated this idea of resources to cope. And when we just took too many withdrawals of our resources till there was nothing left.
Yes.
And now we know, I mean, in case it wasn't a foregone conclusion, a lot of times we don't really think about things being bad for us when the consequence of it feels like it's in the future. But when we experience the consequence immediately, we're more likely to take action. So I definitely want to continue to have opportunities like this to really help people understand what this is, why it's so important, how it can make a difference, and really build a community of people who believe that design makes a difference and who want to live in a better built world and want to speak up when they don't see that happening and really advocate for change.